Hey, great day inspirers and resilience architects. Welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Life Success podcast, where transformation takes center stage. I'm your host, John Register, two-time Olympic trials qualifier, Army combat veteran, amputee, Paralympic silver medalist, top 50 global leadership speaker, and proud Hall of Fame speaker. If you've been inspired by these stories, and I know you have, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the show right now. Tap that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And trust me, you're going to want these conversations on repeat. The podcast drives deep into the lives of senior C-suite executives, world changers, and inspirational influencers who just didn't overcome adversity. They amputated what was holding them back and elevated their lives to incredible heights. You're going to hear the raw, the real, behind the curtain stories that have shaped their leadership, tested their courage, and defined their legacy. So buckle up. It's time to amputate fear and embrace a new normal mindset and win the medals that matter in your life. Today's guest, oh my gosh, I had to bring him on the show because this is exactly what we do here. We highlight leaders who've turned pressure into purpose and adversity into advantage. Galen Bingham is in the house today. Galen is widely known as the leadership strategist, and for good reason. He brings over 30 years of operating experience with some of the most recognizable brands like Kraft Foods, Imperial Sugar, Coca-Cola North America. He is a two-time leadership author, a certified executive coach, and the host of the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast, a show that streams in over 20 countries, and yes, I had the pleasure of being a guest on it. Galen's not only about corporate strategy, he's about legacy. He's coached and advised over 975 senior executives across 7 countries, helping leaders unlock their potential and lead with purpose. But what makes Galen's story powerful isn't just the resume. It's the reason behind the resume. You're going to hear how his life was elevated by the influence of his mother, how he found clarity through challenge, and how he built a platform to lift others up. Speaking my language, Galen, welcome to the show. Let's get into it. Galen, welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast.
Man, I am so excited to be hanging out with Mr. John Register, CSP, CPAE. I don't know, man. Just going down all your credentials is a mouthful. I'm impressed that you're able to get it all in.
No, I just I wake up sometimes like, what is happening? What's going on with rent? But just to jump in real quick, I'm so grateful you're on. You know, you've accomplished so much, but what have you really had to amputate in order to elevate your life success?
Yeah. For me, I had to, and this is really, really tough. This was really hard for me because of my background. And you mentioned all of my years in corporate America and chasing that dream of sitting in the corner office. I ultimately had to amputate the need and the desire for external validation. No, and the clients I work with today, I believe that we all know what it is that we're here to do. But because that dream doesn't necessarily translate to language easily, we go ask other people to express that dream to us, to tell us about that dream, to translate that dream to us when they don't even know what's going on in their life. But yet we're asking them to tell them what we're supposed to be doing. And so I had to personally amputate the need for external validation about what my purpose, what the dream is that I was given. Because like I said, this was between me and God. Other folks, they don't even understand what they're doing in their life. How in the world can they explain what's supposed to be happening in mine?
That's profound. Thank you for sharing that. Oftentimes what I always share in like my keynote speeches is it's almost another revelation just like that. that no one can do it for you. You've been purposed with a call, a dream, a vision, God's design, and only you can fulfill it. There's no one else that can fulfill that but you. And once you become clear in that, worlds begin to open up, in my opinion, for you, right? I had a woman, her name is Rodriguez, and yeah, Pat Enriquez. And she was talking in the business class, and she said, "What's the most important thing about your business?" And we all were talking about sales, marketing. We got to have customers, clients. She said, "The most important thing is how you're going to wrap up your business." And I said, "Wow, that's really it. Tell me more about why that, because that just puts in that you have been successful all the way down in your business." So I began thinking about that for my life. And in my life, I wanted to hear my God say, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter in the joy of my rest." And that shifted the entire way I thought about how other people show up in my life, because no one can give me that direction but God. And so if God is breathing life into me, I have to breathe life into others. It's just a seed. I'm just a seed conduit that passes through. So there's no room for animosity. There's no room for hate. There's no room for any of these things. I have to breathe life into others. And when you find that out, as you were saying so eloquently, life kind of takes off. So when you elevated, you began to elevate. What did you find that you kind of put into your atmosphere that helped you survive and thrive in the environments that you find yourself in?
Yeah, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but the thing that I had to put into my environment is a group of like-minded people who could help me along the journey. Now, there's a temptation, or the reason I said that it might sound counterintuitive is I just made this big statement about not seeking external validation. And then I just said, you got to put some people around you who are like-minded. So it's important to have people who can help you realize the vision. They can see the vision with you, but they're not there to tell you what that vision is. They're there to help you understand the possible steps that you might take, but they're not there to translate the vision that God is giving to you. I've got a couple of people that I lean on for specific things. One person is really, really good at technology. So I go to that person when I need to understand how do I make my digital presence say this particular thing that I'm needing to say.
Yeah.
Another person is really, really good at the business elements of creating deals and making sure that the deals reflect the value of what I'm doing. So I've got specific people that I go to for specific things, but I got into trouble early on when I would go to someone and say, hey, Bob, you've been successful. Tell me what I should do to be successful. He can't tell me that. He can't tell me that. That's a conversation between me and God.
Yeah. That's really good. When you look at a lot of times people say, what would you tell your younger self? I look at that as looking backward to something that you really can't fix. You can't you can't do anything with that information, in other words, because you've already lived the life and you've already had an experience that now we can armchair quarterback it, but we can't change anything about it. So the question I have for you is, if you look 20 years into the future, in your 20 years down the road, where do you see yourself and what would you tell yourself right now to get to that
Yeah, yeah.
destination?
Well, yeah, I love that question. That's a question actually I've been working on answering this past weekend in particular. In 20 years, I am going to enjoy the fact that I've been on this journey to help Black corporate leaders step more boldly into their purpose for being. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just really going to enjoy that fact that I will have advised and coached and consulted with over 15,000 senior leaders all over the world. And they will be able to breathe life into the next generation coming behind both of us. That's one of the things that I'm going to really appreciate 20 years from now. And what I would tell my future self, which is a brilliant question. I'm going to wipe down the fingerprints and use that one myself, man. What will you tell your future self? I'm going to tell my future self to enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. I just finished reading a book that I've become an apostle for. And the book, I believe the author is Bill Perkins, and he wrote Die with Zero. Die with Zero. And he's talking about die with $0. He says the reason for money is to create experiences. And if you die with a bunch of money in the bank, that's a bunch of experiences that you didn't have. And so don't get to zero before you die, but die with zero, right? Cash in that money on experiences. And if you say that you're doing this for your family or for your descendants, spend your money on your descendants now. Create those experiences now, because at the end of the day, no one's going to care how much money you got. All that's going to matter is how you've invested in their lives and what experiences were you able to create for them and with them.
Yeah, that's that's good. I think about dying with zero as we're all dying with zero because we can't take nothing with us. Yeah, but I get it. Don't trade off those experiences for something you can put off. I've seen so many people that they work so hard and they get to that time when now they can enjoy their life and now they want to be with their family and they pass away and
They
they
pass
never had that
away.
chance. They never had the opportunity.
Yeah,
Um,
your loved ones pass away, or let's face it, your health might not be the same as it
right.
was 10 years ago. So although you may dream of climbing a mountain, in 20 years I might not be in a position where I can physically do that.
Hmm.
So rather than saving your money for this mystical, magical someday, create a situation where someday is today.
Yeah.
And how can you get a version of that experience now? Because one of the things that the author talks about is that experiences are like annuities, right? Where you get dividends. You get a dividend from an annuity. I had an opportunity to take my mom on her first trip outside of the United States. I've been blessed to travel to several different countries, and I've had a great experience with my wife and with my daughter. But my mom had never left the country. And so I set a goal that this year I want to take my mom on her first trip outside of the United States. So had to do some organized planning, had to get a passport, had to kind of iron some things out. And so we made that happen. But I'll tell you, here's where the dividends come in. 3 months before we took that trip, my mom was telling all of her friends about where we're going. She was so excited. She was buying clothes and imagining herself on the beach in those outfits. So that was an annuity. That was an annuity. When we went to the Dominican Republic, she was sitting there on the beach drinking a frozen drink with an umbrella in it. And I don't know why, but every time she had to put her little pinky in the air. I don't know why that pinky had to go up every time, but she had to put the pinky in the air. That was an annuity. That was an annuity. And we went earlier this year, but for the past 5 months, I can't get on a call with my mom without her talking about something that happened in the Dominican Republic. And I don't even know that the things that she says happen actually happened. But
Well,
those
she had
are
her pinky up in the air, so
the
it
pinky,
may not
right?
happen.
But that those are dividends from that experience.
Yes, yes.
Now the alternative to spending that money, because trust me, I spent a whole lot of money than I probably should have spent, right? I spent a whole lot of money than I was more money than I was planning to spend. But the alternative to spending the money on that experience was I could sit at home with a nice whiskey and put on some jazz music and look at my financial statements. And my financial statements would be a lot higher, right? And I probably would have earned some interest on that money, right? But it's not worth what I got from the experience of doing something that was meaningful to me, and that was taking my mom on her first trip outside of the US.
Beautiful. That's such a beautiful story. Such a beautiful story. So just you talked about the whiskey jazz and leadership on your podcast, Whiskey Jazz and Leadership. You explore fascinating, really interesting and intersections in leadership and culture. So how do you think creatively, like music or enjoying good whiskey, and how has it influenced leadership and decision making?
Yeah. Oh, fascinating question, and that's a question that I ask every guest to answer on the podcast. So please check it out. We got Mr. John Register coming in season 7. I can't wait to share, man. But yeah, so for me, the I like whiskey, I like jazz, I like leadership, I like all three literally. The metaphor, though, is what I have everyone comment on. And for me, the whiskey element is the social part of doing what you enjoy with the folks you enjoy it with, your crew, this moment to decompress with like-minded people who get you, right? Kind of letting the guard down, because that leads to inspiration. The jazz metaphor is about how do you get from where you are to where you need to be, even in situations where you either don't have sheet music or the sheet music just isn't working. I mean, you've had your keynote all developed. You've spent months developing it and putting the right emphasis in the right parts, and then you get there and the PA system doesn't work, or the person who was supposed to come is still coming, but he's going to be 15 minutes late, and you got to figure out what to do. How do you still get to where you need to be in those moments? Because usually those moments are magical. I like the way Quincy Jones said, when he writes a composition, he only writes 80% because he wants to leave 20% for God to come through the room,
Right,
right?
right.
And that's where the magic is. And then leadership, the metaphor for me is marketing is fun, strategy is incredibly important. Can't have a business without finance. But at the end of the day, someone has to make a decision that we're going to take action right now. And until someone stands up and takes that leadership prerogative to say we're going to take action right now, this has just been an interesting conversation. And so that for me is how those three things impact leadership. They all intertwine into how I think about leadership, how I develop leaders. We often come back to those some versions of those components, and that's what we get to talk about on the podcast. I get leaders from literally all over the world to comment on how that metaphor has led to their success.
Wow, it's a great show. Check it out. Make sure you check it out. Galen Bingham on Whiskey Jazz and Leadership Podcast. It is great. I'll be in season number 7, and I can't wait to hear it myself. That and when you're talking about these coaches that you're leading, and you've advised nearly 1,000 senior executives. I mean, you're starting to get some acumen where you probably know some things now. You've probably seen some common threads and commonalities. What's one of the most powerful transformations that you've witnessed with your clients? Example might be, how does it then reinforce your belief, right, in the power of leadership coaching?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it comes back to something that I said earlier, and this was something I had to uncover in my own journey. We all know what we're put on this planet to do. We
Mhm.
know. It was put into all of us at birth why we are here, but we can't always articulate it. We can't always describe it. And if someone asks you a question and you can't give an answer, we have a tendency to think, well, then I must not know. Well, that's not true at all. That just means that the part of the brain that controls this knowing is not the same part of the brain that controls language. We can know something and just not be able to explain it. Man, I'll tell you, I've had the privilege to be married to the same lady for 29 years. And if I can make it to April, I'll hit that 30 mark. That's a big if, right? Let's pause at that if, because there are lots of opportunities for me to screw this thing up. But if I can make it to April, it will be 30 years. Now, if someone were to ask me, Galen, of all the people on the planet, how do you know that this one person is the one? How do you know that? Well, I know that. It's just hard for me to explain it, right? I'll use a lot of analogies. I'll try my best. I'll stumble over my words. I'll talk about some things that might not make sense. But because I can't explain it doesn't mean that I don't know. And I think the same is true for our purpose and for executives as well. We know, we just can't explain it. And so my job is to help leaders articulate what they already know that they're here to do. And then once they can articulate it, it's usually a lot bigger than where they've been playing. And so then they usually have what I call a Moses moment, where they say, "Are you serious? Are you sure you're talking about me? You're not talking about my brother? You're talking about me? I'm supposed to be doing that? Yeah, you're that's why you were created."
Yeah.
And then my job shifts to giving them the courage to take the steps that they already know that they need to take in order to fulfill their purpose for being on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're talking to the leadership strategist, Galen Bingham, just dropping knowledge on us this morning. I hope you're tuned in, taking notes, dialed in, wherever you are. You need to rewind the tape because this is good. uh, Monique and you, it's coming up on 30 years. You'll make it. You'll make it. I can't see you. Miss it.
Fingers crossed, man. Every moment, every day, there's an opportunity for me to mess this up.
You're not gonna mess this up. Your father, Landis, um, he's studying biochemistry over at Spelman uh, College. I think is that right?
Yeah,
Just he finished up.
my daughter is a senior biochemistry major at Spelman College, and she reminds me every opportunity she gets. Every time I gotta write that check, she reminds me. It's the number one HBCU in the
Yeah.
country for the past 18 years. I'm like, okay, I'll write the check.
I just drove by her campus a few days ago. Um, how do you balance this, high stakes career with family life? With what's the biggest lesson your family has taught you as you do your work?
Yeah, I think it comes back again to the story that I shared the last time about my mom
Yeah.
and the fact that it's about creating experiences. We can't be everywhere all the time, but how can we make sure that when we're there, when we're in a place, that we're fully there? If when I'm spending time with my daughter, I'm thinking about a client engagement, then that's an ineffective use of my time. If I'm with my client and I'm thinking about a conversation I had with my daughter, that's an ineffective use of my focus. So
Hmm.
how can I be fully there wherever I am? And so I just try to make sure that when I've got time that's set aside for my daughter, that we're dialed in. Another thing that I try to do in that vein is my brother and my sister and we have a weekly Zoom call. My brother's in Virginia, my sister's in Arkansas. We're all living our own lives. We're all pursuing why we were put here on this planet. But 5 o'clock every Sunday, I'm on a Zoom call with my brother and my sister, and occasionally my mom will jump in just so that we can stay connected with the only thing that really matters, and that's creating experiences for the people that you love.
I love that theme of just creating these experiences for the people we love. You've coached leaders in 7 different countries, right? All across the world, advised numerous nonprofits. What is the best piece of advice someone has given you during those sessions?
Ooh, very good question. The best advice that someone has given me is really a question, because we talk a lot about questions. And so the question that I often get and that I usually have to answer for myself is, what's really, really important? What's really, really important? I've had a lot of my clients will come back and try to pose that question to me, and they'll say, "Well, Galen, what's important?" No, not the same question. That's not the same question. Or they might say, "Galen, what's really important?" Again, not the same question. The question is, what is really, really important? And by asking that question that way, you get to dial into, why are you here on this planet? And for me, it's about creating experiences for the people that I love. Now, if you just ask me what's important, I talk about this client opportunity that's coming up.
Mhm.
That's important because it's going to mean a lot of money or whatever the case might be. Galen, what's really important? Well, what's really important is the wording on my website, right? That's really important because that communicates my value. But when you ask what's really, really important, again, those things don't matter. It's
mm,
about the
mm.
experiences that I create for the people who I love.
That's that essence of who we show up as with other people around us, and they can't tell us who we are, but they see who we are because we know definitively the the path we're on, the goals that we have, and it becomes almost like a magnet to others because as they're kind of, I won't say floundering out there, but trying to uh, assess what their identity is and how they're showing up. They kind of gravitate to those people who do know, so they can have some type of stability around them. Um, and I know it's not me because I'm all over the place. I know I'm connected to one who is the rock, so I just hold on to the rock, and so everyone else seems to come. They gonna hold on to me because I'm holding on to the rock. So,
Clearly, clearly.
uh,
Hey,
that
man, I'll tell you what you just said. There is so much power in what you just said. But I'm going to share with you that there's some good news and there's some bad news about what you just said. The good news is that if you don't like who you are and how you are experiencing life, you've got the power to change that.
yeah,
That's the good news. If you don't like the way life is unfolding for you, you've got the power to change that. That's the good news. The bad news is if you don't like the way life is unfolding for you right now, well, you've got the power to change that. You're the one. You have the power to change that. As much as I really, really care about my clients' success, I can't change it for them. I can't change it for them. I love my daughter to death. Every conversation I have, every keynote I give, I usually talk about my daughter in some way. But if she doesn't like the life that she's having, I can't change it for her. Right? So there's good news and there's some bad news in that statement. And I hope that you decide to see it as the good news and embrace the responsibility that you hold to change and mold the kind of life that you want to have.
I just had that exact conversation yesterday. The client, exact conversation, uh, and the woman I had two presentations. One was to kind of the spouses of the folks that were at this one client I had, this electric company client, and then of course, then I had the the CEO executives, in the room for at another thing. So I did a different presentation for two. It was interesting, but one person was talking about their child and wanting that person who was playing football for a major team in um, college and keeps getting hurt now and has a different identity. And she keeps trying to help him through this issue that's going on in his life. And I was like, you can't, you can only give tools, and it's up to them to actually use the tools that you have provided for them. Then I gave the analogy, I said, if you're on a 10-meter platform in the swimming pool and I come behind you because you're taking too long and I push you off, you didn't jump.
Mm.
I pushed you. So that means you're floundering all the way down and you're terrified. You hit the water and you survive, but you may not want to go back up on the platform again. If you jump off, if you take the leap and jump and you're floundering in the air and everything, you hit the water, smack and down, at least you know what that was like to jump. So then you say, oh, next time I think I'll go up there and I'll just tuck my hands in, or I'm going to do something to kind of maybe protect myself more. I'll keep my hands. I won't keep them out like this because the water slap my hands. Right? I'll go in like this. I'll go like this. I'll, put my hands up, my hands down, and then maybe after 50 times, you now do a swan dive off the top. And after 100 times, maybe you add a half pike or twist or something in there. So you continue to evolve with it or iterate who you are in those moments. And but you can't do it. I say the same thing in commitments, right? You have to be the one that commits. I can't commit for you. And that's the same thing true for myself as well. This has been fantastic. Anything else that's coming up for you right now that you would like to share with this audience?
Yeah, I just really want to inspire people and encourage people and I'm gonna use your words to amputate this need for external validation.
Hmm.
You were born with everything that you need to be who you are designed to be. If you weren't, then that would be cruel, right? It would be cruel to charge you with doing something and then not equip you with the tools or the ability to learn what it is that I need for you to do. That would be cruel. And I believe that you were at birth given everything that you need in order to be who I need for you to be. And it's our job to find that purpose and then start stepping into it. Find the resources to develop it, to nurture it, and to mature it. If I can be of support or assistance on that journey, I'd love to. But it's your job to find your thing and then get on with being the greatest in the world at whatever that is.
How do people find you for your coaching services, for the Whiskey Jazz Leadership Podcast?
Yeah, well, the easiest way, the most fun way to get a hold of me is to go to any podcast platform and type in whiskey, jazz, and leadership. You can also go to my website. Two ways to get to my website. You can go to Kill Global Coaching, KILN, globalcoaching.com, or you can go to galenbingham.com, GALENBINGHAM.com, and you'll see all of my services. You'll see all of my credentials, all the stuff that my mom thinks is really, really cool. You'll see all that there. Plus, you'll be able to access the Whiskey Jazz and Leadership platform there as well.
You just heard it live from Galen Bingham. He has made the refrigerator of his mama house. That's
I had to. She had to move over. I'm getting crowded out by all those Dominican Republic magnets, man. There's a lot of magnets now.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on. As we've been talking with Galen, I wrote that the biggest thing that kept coming back, he just said it earlier, that when we amputate, we're amputating external validation. You have everything in you to live, to elevate your life's success. So thank you, Galen, for being on, and that's a wrap for this episode of Amputate to Elevate Success Podcast. Wow, what a conversation. Galen, thank you for sharing not just your expertise, but your heart. Your story reminds us that true leadership isn't about power, it's about presence, purpose, and passing the baton to those coming next. If this episode lit up something in you, go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this episode with someone who's facing their own mountain. And hey, don't just be inspired, be activated. The Amputate to Elevate Life Success podcast is brought to you by Inspired Communications International, where we help business leaders hurdle their adversity by amputating fear and elevating to their new normal mindset to win the medals in their life. And until next time, I'm John Register, reminding you, when truth outweighs fear, we commit to a courageous life. So let's go, let's grow, let's elevate. Go forth, inspire your world. Bye for now.